Welcome to this edition of the Simsbury View. My name is Dominique Avery. Our show this month is about the Simsbury Women's Club Arts and Crafts Festival, which is celebrating its 50th year. If you know anything about organizing or running a big event, that is a huge accomplishment. Joining me to talk about the show's history, its future, as well as a preview of this year's event are my two guests. Ellie Hoffman, who's been president of the club multiple times and has been co-chair of the festival since 2006, and Paige Stenrud, a member, actually president of the Simsbury Junior Women's Club and co-chair of this year's Arts and Crafts Festival. Welcome. I'm delighted to welcome you. Thank you so much for coming. They've put together an amazing history of the festival with fascinating details. We don't have time to get into every little one, but I'm going to start with its various locations. Ellie, it hasn't always been on Iron Horse Boulevard. Where did it start out?
It started out in 1969 on the grass in front of Eno Hall. People did not have tents as they do now. They simply had a card table or some kind of a table on which they put their goods that were for sale.
Was it really Eno, or I thought I read that it was in front of Simsbury Town Shops?
I'm not sure on that.
Okay. All right.
I saw that in one piece of history, but everybody keeps saying Eno.
It was Eno. Okay. So that makes more sense. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So it began on the front steps and the lawn right in front of Eno. Over the years, we picked up more vendors, which meant that took more space. So things gradually grew from being in front of Eno to kind of migrating down the street towards where Bank of America is now. And at one point, there were booths, tables across the street, across Hot Meadow Street, which was a little dicey because there was traffic then, not as much as there is now, but people had to be careful crossing the street to see what goodies were laying in wait for them across the street.
So when did it move to Iron Horse? Sometime in the 80s? Sometime
in the 80s, yes. We ran out of space. There just wasn't lawn. There wasn't adequate space as you moved down Hot Meadow Street, and it was becoming a traffic issue. So the parking lots at Iron Horse were available. And that was a good solution because the pavement made it easy for people to set up. We could give people more space. We graduated from having just open tables. We were now a two-day event. When we first started, we were a one-day event. And now we were a two-day event. And to make things secure, the vendors were asked to provide tents that they secure at night, so that their goods were safe and protected from the weather and whatnot. So Iron Horse was an easy area for them to set up. One of the things that the vendors liked from the get-go was the fact that they could drive up to their spot and unload, and when the show was over, again, they could drive up to their spot and load their stuff up. Many times in other venues, they were parked, or the exhibit took place on grass, which was subject to turning muddy if it was rainy, or they couldn't drive on it, or so forth. So we offered some nice benefits by moving over to Iron Horse.
So so I guess that you weren't there at the very beginning, if you don't remember whether it was in front of Simsbury Town Shops. But do you know why the Junior Women's Club started this festival or show in the first place?
Okay, it wasn't the Junior Women. It was
I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yes,
the Simsbury Women's Club. We are a philanthropic organization, and one of our goals is to raise money to turn back to the town to kind of say thank you for being around. So that
was the reason,
so the
right
impetus
from the
was,
start.
Yep.
So at some point, it became a juried show. What does that mean?
Okay. We had a chairman of the festival for probably 20 years. Her name was Zita Duffy. Zita was very organized. She was New York born and bred. She had some good ideas about what people would be interested in, what quality she was striving for, and so forth. So to jury means that a vendor has to submit information about what it is that they want to sell. They need to say what the cost of the goods will be and what the product is consisting of. So if it's jewelry, what kinds of gems, gold, silver, whatever are in it. If it's clothing, making sure that they're doing the work themselves. Nothing is allowed that is pre-made or manufactured. So it has to be
handmade.
Handmade, right.
Now, who judges those and who makes that decision? That seems to me like an awful lot of work.
Traditionally, we have done that internally. Through the membership, we have people who have art backgrounds, people who make their own jewelry, people who do sewing, who do weaving, and so forth. So we've been fortunate enough to have a gifted bunch of members who have been able to look at the goods that are being offered for participation and making a decision.
So at some point, you joined with Septemberfest that the Chamber was running.
Right. That was not our happiest time. The fact that we were on Iron Horse appealed to the Chamber, so they suggested that we join forces so that we could be in tandem on Iron Horse. That certainly gave us a decent crowd. The problem was we kind of fell in the shadow of the Chamber because they had the big center tent with the key, what am I trying to say, entertainment, like to the bar. They had some really big
they
names.
Had big entertainment tent
right,
then, yes.
Right.
Yep.
And they had a lot of business things because of being
they had
tied to the Chamber.
They had a whole building that was set up for businesses. Right,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and at one point they said, well, you know, since we're doing this together, and since the Chamber's got you to join forces with them, can't you turn over some of your profits to us? Well, that kind of rankled a few people. Andy Scheidel, who's not with us this morning, was very active with the Arts and Crafts Festival at that time. And she made a very strong pledge for why we should disjoin, that the Chamber could get their own visibility and we could get our own visibility and have two activities that would make sense to the town for their entertainment and for their profit.
I think it's very ironic that Septemberfest then canceled itself for a while, and there was no Septemberfest for a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you separated for Septemberfest, and they do it on the weekend after Labor Day, and you do it 2 weekends after Labor Day.
Correct. Right.
And it seems to have been working out quite well.
Right. The vendors that come, we have many vendors that return year after year after year. Many of them follow a cycle in the fall. Glastonbury has their Arts and Crafts Festival the first weekend after Labor Day. We have ours the second weekend. And it used to be that Avon had theirs the third weekend. So vendors knew they could guarantee participation and a good following of customers by following that three-town cycle.
So is Avon not doing theirs anymore?
No, unfortunately, their ability to maintain the festival came to a halt. So
that was a nice festival too.
Right, right.
I remember for several years you had a music tent with local entertainment, and I noticed, I think it was last year or the year before, that wasn't there anymore.
Right. That has not been there for several years. We had it, I think, for 2, maybe 3 years at the most, and we had it over to the side of our main venue, behind where Valley Hardware is. Unfortunately, when the town was approving businesses to go into Fiddler's Green, They had multiple restaurants go in there, and they needed parking for both the wait staff and the customers supporting Fiddler's Green. And the town decided that the space we were using for the music needed to go back to Fiddler's Green. So unfortunately that ended our ability to have that. But it was well liked. It was a nice add-on to the festival.
Yeah, and it was sort of fun to go over there and see local groups performing, and it was sort of low-key and very, I don't know, it was just charming.
Right. Yeah. I think people enjoyed it. You know, it was a variety of music. Sometimes it was jazz, sometimes it was more symphony, sometimes it was just young kids doing their thing. So it was a little bit something for everybody.
So in this, I read this incredible history of this. It was so interesting. But one of the things that I noticed that caught my attention was that you've been very lucky with the weather.
Yes, we have.
We'll all knock on wood.
Right.
But I did read that one year there was an incident with a vendor who hadn't tied down her tent. Do you remember that?
Yes. It was a young woman. She was new to our show. She had beautiful glassware. It was painted glassware. She had a tent. She had tables and shelving. Unfortunately, things were not tied down so that when strong winds came, things didn't rattle. And at one point, we had a very strong wind burst, and unfortunately, everything in her tent came crashing down. Nobody was hurt. Everybody around her immediately ran to her rescue, picking up what they could, helping her salvage the few pieces that she could. So it was just an effort on everyone's part to help thy neighbor. Yeah. But we felt so sorry for her.
No, that
what
was
an unfortunate experience for somebody just trying to get into the
Have there been any other sort of funny or unusual things that have happened?
We had years ago, there was a rain shower, I believe, and Zita Duffy was the chairman at that point. Mr. Joseph, who did silkscreen articles, purses, sleepwear, jerseys, whatever, somehow everything got wet. Well, Zita took him under her wing, and she got everything dried. Now, he had been a faithful attendee as a vendor since 1982, I believe. So he was a long-term, and he always said, "You people are so good to me. You remember when?" So that was another time. But basically, the weather has always been good. We've had a few sprinkles, but nothing major. I made a faux pas when I was first chairman, and we were going through the checklist: this done, this done, this done. And we finished up, and I said, "All we need to do now is pray for rain." Oh. Excuse me, I mean sun. So the standing joke is, Ellie said, we pray for rain. So every year we pray for rain and the sun shines. So.
That's funny. Paige, you've been sitting here patiently, listening to this history. You are president of the Junior Women's Club.
That's right, co-president of
And that brings me to the next subject, which is the people who are running the Women's Club Arts and Crafts Festival are getting on in years. And so I think there have been a lot of people nervous about whether it's going to continue. But now that you're here, I have a feeling that there is an agreement and that you have been working on it. So can you tell me how that happened?
Sure.
And
so the Women's Club got in touch with the Junior Women's Club, our then presidents, Val Gallows and Jen Querum, who also co-chairs the Arts and Crafts Festival with me on our side now. And you reached out to them and said, you know, we could use a little bit of help. Do you think that you guys would be willing to do that? And we sort of talked amongst ourselves and said, yeah, this sounds, our mission is very similar. It gives us the opportunity to spend time with women in the community that we might not interact with otherwise, which has been wonderful, and help continue this long-standing community event. So it seemed like a good thing to do.
So, Paige, do you think that once the Women's Club members pull back, that the Junior Women's Club will...
Yes, we actually have a succession plan in place, and over the next 3 years, or I guess it's 2 now.
2 now.
We're sort of interning, if you will, and we'll slowly take on more of the responsibilities, and by the 3rd year out, we'll take over it entirely as of right now, and hopefully live up to the standards. We certainly hope to. We think it's an amazing event. We love being a part of it. It's got some incredible vendors from across the board. My daughter loves going to look at the doll clothes that are all hand sewn. I've bought fine art pieces there that I just love. So personally, I certainly have a vested interest in continuing.
I have a vested interest in your continuing too, because I make an annual trip to Germany to visit friends and relatives, and I go every year, and it's in November, and I go every year to the fair to pick up a few unique things to bring as presents. So you have to continue for me.
Absolutely.
If I can just interject here, having the juniors on board has been wonderful. Because we're an aging population in the Women's Club, we're not as savvy about the technology and the media and some of the means that are available to us for broadcasting and publicizing ourselves. So they've come through with some wonderful, fresh ideas, which we really appreciate. So that's been great. And they have strong legs, strong arms. They can bend and do all the things that we older folks can't do so easily anymore.
That's absolutely true. As I see that with my garden. You plant a big garden, and then you start getting old, and you can't keep it up, and you never thought of it, right? All the things that you do. So so I'm sure you work on this almost all year. So everything is behind the scenes, and then on the day of the festival, or tell me what leads up to it and what you have to do and what you've been doing, because you've been running this since 2006. So.
It does take almost a year, and it takes a whole village to do this.
Mostly you.
We start in January getting the applications out to the potential vendors. We send out to what we call our pre-accepted. These are the long-term vendors who have good quality works from year to year, and we just automatically accept them. And we maintain lists of potential vendors that we would like to have participate. So that information starts going out in January. Publicity kicks in at that point, where we make a call for vendors. So anybody who isn't aware of who we are or what we do sees it in various media forms that we are looking for vendors and what kinds of materials we would appreciate having. They know that the materials will be juried, so that's not a surprise. They know that they have to come with a tent so they can be secure overnight. Then, as time goes on, the applications begin to come in. There's a significant record-keeping process that takes place so that we know who's who, who's paid, how big a site do they want, and so forth. And then around this time of year, things really begin to kick into high gear. We have to get the banner approved. We have to get sign permits done. So
every year?
Every year. Every year. That's a process. The town is very rigorous. In January, we have to go through the town approval process, meet with the committee that says aye or nay to you can do this. And we've been fortunate we have a good record, so they haven't kicked us out yet. Hopefully they never will. And then as it gets to be September, we are going into high gear. So we get people to know who's going to be hostessing to help the vendors during their days on the site. We have people doing baking because we have a bake sale. On the Friday before the event, we do the site plan, which is when we need the younger people who could stretch and bend and mark the ground to where the vendors are going to be located. And then the vendors start coming in Friday afternoon, setting up their tents. Maybe a third or so will come in Friday afternoon, and then the rest come in Saturday morning and have to be there from Saturday morning until we shut down Sunday afternoon.
So, one thing I want to quickly do, because we're starting to run out of time, is a little preview of what's coming up this year and anything new. I noticed that you have food trucks now. So that's a big change.
Yeah.
Did the Junior Women's Club suggest that?
It was one of the things that we talked about. We'd like to bring more families. It's a curated show where, you know, it's the standards are quite high, and so it has this fine art sort of look to it, and it should. But we also wanted to get families to come and have it be an event where you could bring everyone and sort of spend the afternoon. So in line with that, we've brought food trucks. We've talked about bringing some of the music back. Last year we had one band come in on a smaller scale. So yeah, we're hoping that we can.
And do you have a Facebook page? Talk about modern things?
We do.
Yeah. And that's new?
It is relatively new. We had it last year.
Yeah. Yes. You had asked if we had an event planner. We do have an event planner who kind of got us motivated and refocused along with the juniors. And she's been, again, another person who has wonderful ideas. Her name is Liz Reynolds. She has major experience in the DC area organizing events. So she's been a great blessing to keep us going and motivated. Lost track of what I was going to say.
But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we get in is that the money that you make goes to you give out to as like a foundation, as scholarships and other things. Where does the money go to? Who do you give it to, and how do people go about trying to get some from you?
All right. I think in both situations we give money for scholarships. So our club gives scholarships to 2 seniors graduating from Simsbury High School, plus a scholarship to a woman who has decided to continue her education. And we've had some pretty amazing candidates for that. We also give the balance of our money to organizations in town, nonprofits, who have a specific need. For example, last year, the police department was starting up the rape defense activity. So we gave some money for them to buy equipment to keep that program going. So we look for opportunities in town to help the townspeople benefit from.
Now, if somebody would like to make a request or put in a request, how do they do that?
They could just contact one of us and say, you know, here's something that you might want to consider. And we're certainly
and they can
considering.
find out the information on the, do you have a web page?
We have a web page, yes.
So.
Yeah.
Ours is quite similar.
And theirs, it's very similar.
Our grant application process opens in January. The application, it can be found on our website at Junior Women's Club. And
so as long as I have you here, the Junior Women's Club, I have about 30 seconds left. The Junior Women's Club does a lot of wonderful things too. I hope I can bring you back some other time to talk about all the things that you do.
Absolutely, we'd love to do that. We really would. We do very similar things. We also have a scholarship, and that would be great. We'd love to come back.
And don't you do the lanterns?
We do Luminary Night.
Yeah, Luminary Night,
right,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And the teddy bear sleepover.
That's a big favorite.
Yeah, that's huge.
At the library. It's wonderful. It's a
right.
wonderful event, and we have a great time doing it. So.
Okay, so this year people should look for food trucks, maybe a little music.
Yeah.
And the usual juried artists and crafts people.
Yep. And it's September 14th and 15th. We're open from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, both Saturday and Sunday, rain or shine. We're not going to have any rain.
We're praying for rain.
You'll pray for rain. So I've gotten the signal that our time is up. I want to thank both my guests for this interesting look back at the festival and the news that plans are in the works for ensuring that it will continue. Thanks also to everyone here at SCTV for getting the show on the air, and a special thanks to Kristen Benedict, who has been the SCTV operations assistant and editor for 5 years. She's moving on to bigger and better things, but we will miss her and we wish her good luck. I've just enough time to remind you that the Simsbury Women's Club Arts and Crafts Festival is always held the second weekend after Labor Day on Iron Horse Boulevard. This year that's September 14th and 15th. If you missed any portion of the show, you can find it on our website at simsburytv.org. You can also watch it on Comcast, Channel 1084, and Channel 5, and on Frontier on 6069. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dominique Avery.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.